Well, you know what's interesting about you is how I found you. So, I've been telling people to follow you on Instagram, but you have a really cool show and you often feature your daughter, and we got to talking about it yesterday. Her name is Ty.
Mhm.
And what I wasn't going to necessarily start with her, but since she is technically the star of the show, what I loved about her was what we talked about yesterday is that she just doesn't really have a filter or a mask. And she's 4, so of course she's not. But I think it's interesting. We talked about it yesterday. Why do you feel like we do tend to wear a mask as we get older? Like we do tend to sort of think that we need to kind of filter ourselves or change who we are instead of like kind of going back to who we really are in the beginning.
I mean, there's probably a lot of different angles that you can go about this. I kind of think of it as, you think about an artist of any kind, musician, you think about someone who paints or someone who does really creates anything. A lot of times where success is measured is if other people like it. You think about like a famous artist is famous because other people like their songs. They don't necessarily create, anything different than someone else. It's just a matter of what people like. So we kind of go throughout our lives doing things, getting feedback from people. And when you are good at something, you continue to do that and you get positive feedback. Oh, really nice job on that. Oh, Conor's been competing in CrossFit. I'm getting better at that. That's something where you get recognition. Very rarely do you go out and suck at something and people are like, hey man, you sucked at that. That was great. But and so we get caught and kind of stuck in these ways where the only thing you want to do is things that you have experience doing. We don't like change, right? I mean, we're kind of creatures of habit. So when you start, that journey to try something new, oftentimes there's this fear of being bad at it or being judged, or instead of having that positive feedback, like, hey, great work, it's like you almost look like a fool. And some of the happiest people that you meet in life, and really what it comes down to as well is, you talk about kids, is that they have so much curiosity. There's no preconceived notion of, hey, if I'm not good at this, people are going to judge me. It's, they have a board game. It was just celebrated my daughter's 4th birthday. And yes, she is 100% the star of the show. I'd like the fact that wanted me to come on here. I was like, I have to like book her in order to get that time. But she's just so curious. And a good friend of mine, Chris Irwin, who's a retired Navy SEAL, an incredible mentor to me, we had this discussion where it's like, well, what's the opposite of fear? And a lot of times people would say it is courage, but how he puts it is that it is curiosity. And it is, you see it in kids, you see it in children who are like, oh, I want to try to get on the skateboard. I want to try this new board game. But I think as we get older, we start to lose that and we start to get kind of stuck in our ways, which can be, it can be a major downfall, especially when it comes to mental health. So I think that learning from someone like my daughter, it's crazy to think, hey, I'm her dad and I'm, in charge of her life and well-being. Yet I learned so much from her curiosity and just pure joy to try new things and to do adventures, not having anything like, hey, am I going to be good or am I going to be bad at this? It's just, I'm going to do this. And it's so unique and it's so special to be a part of. I feel very grateful.
Yeah. And I think it says a lot about you that you prioritize her voice in so much of what you do. And I think, as a woman in her 30s, it's like I'm learning from a 4-year-old. And then I start to like actually get back to the person, because it was very cute. You have this very sweet video. I reposted it. And like I said, go check out his Instagram. Conor's great. It reminded me of the relationship I had with my dad and how he used to see me. And, I recently lost him. And I think when you go through these moments of hardships, and I want to get back to you in your story because you had a hardship. And, as someone who went through what you went through, why don't you tell us kind of what happened? You were pursuing a career to be a SEAL. And then something happened. What happened there?
So I had issues with my elbows with combat diving. So at a certain depth, if you come up without safety stops, which your body just kind of acclimates at each level depending on the depth of the dive. Don't want to get too far into it, but I had just had issues with my elbows. I threw the baseball really hard as a kid, and so I had some sort of issues. And when you cannot get your clearance for what's called a jump dive physical, you cannot continue in special operations. And so I'd been through some training, and I kind of made a name for myself in that career path, but there wasn't really anything that I could do when I wasn't cleared for my jump dive physical. So that the other option was to either get out or choose a different job. And that was hard for me, and I don't want it to make it seem like, oh, what I had was really difficult or someone needs to feel bad for me. I mean, there's always people that have a harder scenario, but it was tough because that's all I wanted to do. And I put everything into it. And I had a lot of people cheering me on. I had a lot of people who were doubting me as well to make it through and to be able to get through that, but then have this issue where I think I'm going to do this job the rest of my life, where I kind of identified with that. It was really tough. And when I moved, when you have to, move on from there, it's like, well, what do you do? If that's the pinnacle of what you want to do, how do you live your life anything different? And I think I was just too close to identifying with that, not just treating it as a job. So, finding a community in CrossFit, I utilized CrossFit to kind of heal from a surgery that I had on my elbow. You can kind of see like one of the scars here on it, but I've had multiple surgeries on it, and using movement to heal it was an incredible journey. Obviously, training and that is great for every aspect of your life. But I started to find a community of people that really cared, and they were willing to put in hard work, and there was this shared suffering component, and being a part of that was cool. But then being able to influence it was really special, and being able to coach and help other people on that journey, whether it was finding a community, whether it was losing 100 pounds, whether it was saving a relationship because of, whatever the issues were. I fell in love with coaching because I mean, like I said yesterday, it's a selfish thing. What I get from helping others and coach is I think tenfold what other people are getting or receiving from results and whatever they want to get better at. So kind of moving from something like, hey, here's what I want to do with my life, for a little bit, I kind of felt sorry for myself. And that's the worst place you can be at any point in time. It doesn't matter what you go through. And a lot of people have gone through way more difficult things, and there's way more hardship. But the second that you start to feel like, oh, like woe is me, kind of boo hoo, and not to take away, I don't want to say, hey, what I've gone through is harder. I'm just saying it doesn't matter what it is. When you start feeling sorry for yourself, you're going to be in this pit of misery. That's the energy you're going to attract. That's how you're going to live your life. Yeah. And you see people that have gone through these like unbelievable hardships where you're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even a fraction of that. Yet they don't feel sorry for themselves. They're grateful for everything they have. They're grateful for their relationships, their friendships. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want to be. And my friend Chris Irwin, who I mentioned beforehand, I met him when I was down in St. Thomas. And this is a guy who's, he retired as a Navy SEAL, and he did everything that I wanted to do, in that career path. And he didn't feel like anyone owed him anything. It was a job for him. And he wanted people, in fact, you would never know, or he would never let anyone know or tell anyone, like, hey, this is who I am or what I used to do. It's usually the last thing people would find out about him, because he wanted people to respect him for who he was and what he's currently doing. Not because he did a job that is incredibly honorable, not to take away anything from, anyone serving in the military. But as soon as you identify with it, what are you without it? And for Chris, he was just an incredible person. And no matter what he did, he was going to be respected as that because of who he was, not what he did.
And I appreciate Chris. I think it's hard to get there, especially in today's society, because we're so deeply invested in creating like the mask I was telling you about, and I can definitely relate to how important I needed to be on the outside because I didn't feel important on the inside. And I remember a story to touch on what you're talking about like sort of being a bit sad, but like don't marinate in it. There was someone who had to get their leg amputated, and I forget the actual situation, but they were interviewed and they said, I'm just glad I didn't die. And I think that that's a really powerful perspective in knowing like it could always be a little worse. My grandma would always say that. My dad would say that to me. Like, if you know your situation sucks, you can be sad. You can marinate in sadness, but don't stay stuck in it. And what you went through was hard. And I think that's why this is very important for me to have these kinds of conversations, because when you suffer loss, this dream of being a SEAL, or so many men have this dream of just, being pro athletes, and then when they have a mid-season or a season-ending injury, like, they don't know who they are anymore. And when we spoke yesterday on the phone, I shared a little bit about my life and losing my father, my brothers, and then going through a breakup I wouldn't wish on anyone else, right? All kind of happening at the same time. But it's amazing when you get past the pain and the sadness of it, and you start to realize, wow, like, I'm actually not happy this all happened to me, but I matured enough to where I can show up differently and more compassionately for people in the community, like you're doing with the people you work with. And you see these transformations. And like you said, it's almost like it's not fair, the reward we get when we make such a difference, right?
Yeah. I mean, I recently coached a class. I would coach like a Friday morning class, and we'd have signs for it. And it became a popular class. It was, again, just a community, people reaching out to other people, being like, hey, come to Conor's class. And it's like, at the end of class, I had one of the members give me a photo, and it was of a class picture we took at the end of a class, and everyone had signed it and just like said, like, thank you for XYZ. And, I always try to be relatively stoic. I don't like to show too much emotion as far as like crying, but I'm not afraid to do it. But it was just like, it was so moving to me that people willing to do that for someone who's just, it's a job. It's a job for me, but it's incredibly rewarding and incredibly special. And I think that, I wanted to touch on something that you said as well. I mean, I kind of in the background, in the area that you are, it's, I have a unique opportunity to train some celebrities. And what I've learned from it is that if you don't know who you are and what you stand for before you become famous, fame is the most addictive and hardest drug there is. And, if no matter what, how people perceive you is what you're going to go off. You're going to base your success, like the efficacy of your work, off of. That you're going to get torn to pieces, because it's not, it doesn't have to do with if you're caring about your passion, or if people are liking your songs, or you make an album and people don't like it. And it's like, as long as you are caring about it and you know who you are, you're going to be set. But you see so many people just go down this rabbit hole in this similar fashion with, I'm sure, NFL athletes, with people in the military. It's that they identify with, like, that is who they are, is what they're doing is who they are. And if people can take a step back and find out, like, who am I? And then, is that person participating in these things? If I'm going to if I had the opportunity to be a professional athlete, it didn't matter how many yards I ran that day. That didn't mean I was a better or worse person. It's like, sure, there's success in that. You always want to do well. I'm not saying, hey, just go be mediocre at life. Like, no, chase that fucking dream. Like, go, like, be everything that you can and go all in on something. But know at the end of the day that it doesn't change who you are, the success of what your job is.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that too, because I grew up in LA, and I think in LA we're so focused on so much external, like how we look and what we drive, and I'm a producer and I'm a this and I'm a that. And I hate when people lead with such unimportant things, because at the end of the day, we're all human. And we're all vulnerable, and we all want the same thing. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be accepted, like, authentically for who we are. And you're so profound in what you said, in the sense of, like, if we achieve fame before we really have the opportunity to figure out who we are, it's detrimental, because then we're just continuing to search for that dopamine hit, right? Like, even influencers, I'm worried and concerned for our youth in that, like, what happens to the influencer who doesn't get the same amount of likes? I mean, there's a really, really good documentary on Jake Paul. It's called Untold. And it talks about how this, this, like, bigger than life personality almost becomes hated. And it's it's so hard if you're just searching to be liked by people you don't even know. And yeah, and fame can be a real detriment. So how do you get to know who you are?
Man, I don't know. That's a deep question. Get to know who you are. You know, it's something that you feel like I should like have an answer to, if that's still that and I'm in no way in a position where like, hey, I'm solid, I know who I am. But I think it comes down to figuring out who you want to be, and then taking steps to do that. Because I think it can change too. You know, I've gone in periods of my life where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be the person that everyone looks to do X, Y, Z. I want to be this person. This is who I want to be. Now I'm going to make the steps to do that, and really figuring that out. Like you said, like really we just want to be loved. As cheesy as it sounds, we all just want to fit in. We all want the same thing. We're all human. But you know, I think finding out who you are, it takes a lot more than, you know, I don't know if I have the answer for everyone. I don't know if I have the answer.
I think it's also knowing who you don't want to be, which you kind of said in a way. I think it's when you go through tough times, it's almost like, I tell some friends, like, rejection is never rejection, it's alignment. So if you aren't accepted into this group or this team, or you lose your job, I think those are opportunities to figure out who you are. And you don't necessarily know who you are right away. You build a sense of grit, and you find your community, and you just stay connected to your heart. And I didn't know who I was 3 years ago. I mean, I still don't necessarily know who I am, but I know who I don't want to be. And I don't want to be this like fake, inauthentic, opportunistic person who's just here to get likes, or just here to say the right thing. I want to say the thing that resonates with me, and meet and connect with people, and actually have presence, and learn. So if I'm staying curious, like you said, that you so implement with your daughter, and you have those moments, like, that's who I want to be. It doesn't necessarily need to have like a game plan. I just know how I want to feel, and I know the kind of people I want to feel that with. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. You know, it's like, what really makes you feel good. And I've always said too, I was actually like, you know, the only time I really go on Facebook is I'll look at memories and like read things that I wrote like 13 years ago. And I was like, did I just copy that from someone? Like, where did that come from? But there was one that was like, you know, the world doesn't need more of X, Y, Z. It's like the world needs more people doing things that lights them on fire. So figure out what makes you feel really and truly good. And if it lights you on fire, then do that. And it doesn't matter. And that's the people that I want to be around. I don't care what people do. If you are a cartoonist and you love that so much, you're someone I want to be around. If you make shoes, if you do literally fill in the blank, and you are absolutely all in, passionate about what you're doing, helping people, volunteering, being a friend, a boat captain, whatever it is, that's the people I want to be around. Because those are the people that are genuine, they love what they do. Other people that are doing jobs so they can make money to do certain things, like, hey, that's your own prerogative if that's what you want. But the people that I want around me are the people that maybe don't know exactly who they are, but what they do on a day-to-day basis lights them on fire. And like, that's what I want.
Yeah. And I see that you love what you do, and you're inspiring. You and Ty together, you guys are inspiring, and keep doing it. And thank you so much for jumping on. I went over with my time with you, but I appreciate your flexibility and your generosity. And yeah, go follow Conor. He's amazing. His daughter Ty is adorable. And yes, thank you for jumping on. You're so awesome.
Well, thank you very much. It was an honor when you reached out, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye, Conor.
Yeah.